Hey Telutizens, with me again, Aji Gautama Putrada. I am your lecturer for operating systems. This is our second meeting about process. In our last video, we will discuss about process switching. Let's start our last video. Okay, so here we are. These are the kernel functions. These are the kernel functions that we mentioned earlier in the sixth video. The video before this, we are discussing about the process management functions. In the sixth video, we have learned about process creation. There are 5 steps. Now we are going to discuss about process switching. So what is process switching? You have learned before what process switching is when we discussed about process state. So when a process switches from A to B, of course with the help of the dispatcher, which is a part of the OS, this is called process switching. So from here we know that there are 2 causes of process switching. The first is a clock interrupt, and the second one is IO interrupt. IO interrupt. This is an example of clock interrupt. So it switches because it has reached 6 here milliseconds of time interrupt, and then this is the example of an IO interrupt because it is waiting for an IO to respond. It blocks here, it blocks itself, and then the process switches from B to C through the dispatcher here. So from the previous slide, we can conclude that switching is caused by interrupt. Besides interrupt, there is something else called trap. What is the difference between interrupt and trap? Here is a table that explains the difference. Interrupt is an interruption caused by an external event, meaning that trap is an interruption that is caused by an internal event. So if the event is internal and it causes the process switch, then it is called a trap. Here and then there is one else is called supervisor call. The examples, we have examples for interrupt and trap. The example for interrupt is the reaction to an asynchronous external event. For example, we have discussed I/O or clock. And then in trap, the example is handling of an error or an exception condition. So the example of trap is an error. Internal error can cause interrupt. So what the process switching happens. Process switching is also sometimes called process switching is sometimes called context switching. It's the same thing. Basics is that it switches from one process to another process. So that is the end of video 7 and also the end of our second meeting. In this 7th video, we have discussed about process switching and also interrupt and also trap and the difference between interrupt and trap. And Overall, in our second meeting, we have successfully discussed about process. I hope you can gain something useful from these videos, and we'll meet again in the next collection of videos in meeting 3, which is next week. Thank you for your attention, and goodbye.